Got it. Okay. All right, I'm going to share my screen here for a moment. Hey, good night, everyone. Thank you for being here. Tonight's discussion is on domestic violence. And unfortunately, two of my guests are unable to come tonight. But before we get started, I'd like to read something. Um, Shirley, I think you're a little familiar with that, but I'm going to read it. It's one woman's story.
Oh, okay. Yes, I think I gave you that a long time ago.
Years ago, and for some reason I kept it. It says, I got flowers today. It wasn't my birthday or any other special day. We had our first argument last night, and he said a lot of cruel things that really hurt me. I know he's sorry and didn't mean it, or the things that he said, because he sent me flowers today. I got flowers today. It wasn't my anniversary or any other special day. Last night, he threw me into a wall and started choking me. It seems like a nightmare. I couldn't believe that was real. I woke up this morning sore, bruised all over. I know he must be sorry because he sent me flowers today. I got flowers today, and it wasn't Mother's Day or any other special day. Last night, he beat me up again, and this time it was much worse than all the other times. If I leave him, what will I do? Who will take care of my children? What about money? I'm afraid of him and scared to leave, but I know he must be sorry because he sent me flowers today. I got flowers today. Today was a very special day. It was the day of my funeral. Last night, he finally killed me. He beat me to death. If only I had gathered enough courage and strength to leave him, I would not have gotten flowers today.
Yeah.
That was deep, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So, like I said, tonight's conversation is about domestic violence. For those of you who hear and don't know, my name is Beverly Perryman. I go by Spice Island Queen. I'm a certified sexologist, educator. I started my journey 5 years ago as a bedroom candy consultant. And while I was doing countless parties, I realized that I needed to and listen to the comments and subject matters of some of the comments of women. I decided that I could not sell toys or any other product to anyone without educating them. With that, I started looking up sex education, and sexologist came up. When I read the definition of it, I put myself there and I said, yes, that is me. So from then on, I just started my journey as a sexologist. And no, I don't teach how to have sex, but how to better your relationship. My theory is that all relationship does not have to end in divorce or separation, but is how you deal with the things that happen in your relationship and taking responsibility for the role that you played in whatever happened in your relationship. So with that said, I have some of the rules here. And tonight, I'm going to, some of it doesn't really apply because I'm going to do this a little different tonight. So the only people that really going to be able to speak will be the speakers. Everybody else would be able to ask questions, but no judgment and asking question like, why don't they leave for the people who are listening? And also to be judgment and asking ridiculous questions because everybody could say that what they would and would not do until they're in the situation. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. Let me see who's on. Okay, so first I would like to, Carmen, my co-host, do you have anything to add?
Well, Bev, as you know, I always say I grew up around domestic violence. I saw it all my life growing up, and I made a conscious decision at the age of 25 that I will not associate with that. I am a certified special and general education teacher. I teach in the city of New York. Currently, I'm teaching a gen ed class, but previously to that, for 14 years, I taught special education. Um, I decided to join Bev on this journey and to support her in any way I can with her ideas, because I get her passion about helping human beings in general, not just women, but men and children as well. And so I welcome you. I am a co-host, and it is my pleasure to be here, to be honest.
Thank you for that. Eric, anything to add before we get started?
I think Carmen basically summarized everything beautifully. So I'm the other co-host, I guess, a male's perspective on certain things. So I'm also a teacher. Um, and yeah, let's get started.
Okay. So first I'd like to start with Shirley Cromer because she is an advocate for domestic violence here in the city that I live in, Piscataway, New Jersey. Shirley is the one that would get the phone call in the middle of the night that she's have to get up and do whatever necessary to help anyone that's in crisis. Shirley, you're muted. Press the button that looks like the microphone.
Shirley, it's at the bottom left.
I think she went to get help.
Can I introduce someone else in the meantime, Bev?
Yeah. The other two parties is not on. The other two that I have in a special order. So let me give. Anybody have anything to say in the meantime while we wait for Shirley? Hi, Ben. How are you?
Hi,
Hi,
Bev.
Claudette.
I'm here.
Oh,
I'm
okay, great.
sorry about that. I got myself out accidentally. Good
Okay.
evening, everybody. My name is Shirley Cromer, and I've been a domestic counselor advocate for well over 10 years. And it's very difficult at times. A lot of people think they have the thought that domestic violence is only in the ghetto and ghetto people, et cetera, but you'll be surprised to know the amount of people. It has no ethnicity or gender or anything like that. Anybody could be involved in that situation. A lot of people would think that Indian people, Asian people is not involved in domestic violence. Yes, there's a lot of Asians. There's Blacks, there's Caucasians, there's all different ethnicity that are caught up in domestic violence. And it's so sad, especially when there's kids that are involved. Um, my job when I get those calls, my job is not to advise, is to give the victims the tools that can help them, that can enable them to get out of the situation. But most times, the women and men also abuse is not only a female thing, also men. But the difference between the men are embarrassed. They're embarrassed to seek help or to go to the police station because it's a male thing. And they're very embarrassed. We had males that had no choice, no recourse, but they needed help. They need to seek help. The only sad thing is with the women, you give them the tools. You give some of them, not all of them, you give them the tools so they could live a better life and seek help. And they find themselves back in the same situation because there's a mindset that, oh, he loves me. This is why he's doing these things to me. Oh, he cares about me because he constantly say he's sorry. So they find themselves in a deeper and deeper and deeper situation, and some end up being killed. Some, end up being like stalked, being followed, and it's very sad. It's very sad, and especially when there's children that are involved.
Okay. So a question that I would ask, why you mentioned mostly the women. Is it the women that get the help versus the men?
Both women and men do get the help. Men do get the
Mhm.
help. If the men would report that they're being abused by their spouse, their girlfriend, or what the case may be, they can seek help and they would get the same help that the women would get. It's not biased. They would get the same help. But men, because they're male, they're embarrassed. They're embarrassed.
Right.
They much rather not seek the help and go along with whatever's going on in their life.
So you think it's because they're mostly judged. They're men, and just
Yeah,
growing up from young age, they learn to accept the fact that you're a male. You're supposed to be strong. You're not supposed to cry. You're supposed to take whatever is given to you. They're almost
exactly.
treated like they don't have the
Exactly.
feelings.
Exactly. And there's so much resource out there because when the victims usually get a packet, and in that packet is resources and all the tools. And there's a lot of help in the state. There's a lot of help in the state of New Jersey. There's women aware that would guide them, and they also get guidance through the police department, and they're taught, they're shown how to do the temporary restraining order. They have to go before a judge. The judge would grant them a temporary restraining order. So this way, the male or maybe the female kind of get in contact with them. They then have to inform their place of business where they work that this person is not supposed to be here, or where the children go to school. They have to make that information to them, to their place of business, the children's school. This person take the person off the books. They're not supposed to pick the kids up. The thing is, the victims, wherever women are warehouse them, they're not supposed to tell not even their family or anyone where they are. Where they are is a security thing, it's a secured place. But sometimes the women, they would say where they are, and the men would go get them.
Right.
The men would go get them because they feel that, oh, he loves me, he's going to change. He said he's sorry, and then again, there is some women where there's finances that are concerned. They have no car, they have no money. Maybe he took away the passport, especially the Asian women, the Indian women. Maybe he took away the passport. I can't leave the country. I can't do anything. I can't go anywhere. Then again, women aware, that's where women aware comes into play, because my job, or all the advocates and the council job, is that um, I would personally, or the other council would call women aware and say, well, I have a victim. They need housing. They have no car. They have whatever. And women aware would um, make it possible, make arrangements for them to be picked up and for them to be housed. But they have to bear in mind, they cannot say where they are because it's a safe place. It's a safe place. They house them in a safe place.
So how effective is the restraint order? Because I know a lot of situations where, that falls short, even though it's supposed to be in effect.
Well, sometimes the women would take off the restraining order. It's a temporary restraining order until they go to court for the final restraining order. The final restraining order is that absolutely, absolutely no contact whatever. That's it. That's it. It's final. But sometimes the women, they would, ask the judge to remove the restraining order. So that way there's no protection. There's no protection. And all we can do is just give them the tools. We cannot advise them what to do. Just give them the tools so that they could make their own decision.
Okay. All right. So I know since COVID started, because I get a lot of calls and messages from women, especially that's going through the abuse right now. So would you say that since COVID that domestic violence has risen?
Oh my, yes, it has risen a great deal since COVID because people they're in the homes together with the spouse, with their partner, with their boyfriends, and it has risen a lot. It has risen a lot. And the thing is that we had to counsel the victims via phone because we weren't allowed to go into police headquarters. We had to counsel them via phone. Now, next year, we will be allowed to go back. I think in January, we'll be allowed to go back to the police headquarters to counsel victims that call in that is seeking counseling. But domestic violence has risen a great deal, a great deal. And also another thing is that in the month of October, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I'm sure you know about that.
Yes.
And we usually have what is called a silent witness, and it's on display. And this October, we had it at Westergaard Library. And it's silhouettes that for male and female that show the victims that were murdered through domestic violence. And there's a story about that particular victim. Because several years ago, we had an officer and he was murdered by his son. So we do have a silhouette for him that we display every year. And it's not only New Jersey, it's a statewide event that they would display a silhouette of victims that were murdered through domestic violence.
Because I read an article yesterday that said nationwide domestic violence has risen 300%.
It
People,
has,
that's
it has.
that's a lot. Mhm.
And also, what the Piscataway domestic violence team does, we would bring programs to the junior high, the middle school, as well as the high school, because there's violence with the kids. There's domestic violence among the teenagers, among the youth. And these young people, they think, oh, he loves me. This is why he's hitting on me. This is why he's stalking me. This is why he's doing certain things. So we would bring a program called Yellow Dress or Remote Control. And with the program with Yellow Dress, it was a teenage young girl. And she didn't want, because her boyfriend was abusive, she wanted to leave him. And he begged her and he begged her. And she went to the prom in her pretty yellow dress and she was murdered. He killed her.
Was
So
that
we
that
would bring,
ER incident?
yeah, we would have actors and actresses like like acting out the scene, for the kids. So the kids are aware that look, love doesn't hurt, do something, say something, get help, so we're trying to eradicate domestic violence the best way we know how.
Mm, okay. Also, what would you say to, just from your experience, that people, especially, like family member who are judgmental, that would say to the victim, why did you stay so long? If I were you, I would leave. If I were you, I would do that, this and that.
Well, because it could be finances. It could be that the woman, she's staying because of the kids, number one. Number two, she's staying because maybe she's a homemaker. Maybe she doesn't have a job. Maybe she has nowhere to turn. And maybe that's one of the reason why she's staying. But, we can't judge. All we can do is just give them, the tools so they could get on their feet and help themselves. We can't be judgmental, because you have to walk in that person's shoe to know what that person is going through. And
Correct.
some people, they stay because of the kids, but then it affects the kids in the long run, because the kids, they're seeing what's going on, and it's not really a healthy situation.
Correct. Correct. Okay, now as we were talking about children, I have Maggie on. She is a psychologist in
No,
school,
school social worker.
school social worker.
Yes.
Sorry, thanks for the correction. Okay, so would you like to, talk about some of the experience and things that you've seen? Because, like, I also work in a school, and some of the things and the behavior that I see from the children, it's kind of adopted behavior because they see their parents abuse, so they come and they think it's okay. Or, sometimes I would hear them say, well, my daddy hits my mother, and like sometimes they want to also project it onto us as adults and say, like, I know one kid said to me, my dad hits hard and I can hit you just as hard as my dad. So what do you have
Yes.
to say about them?
Well, I think, of course, domestic violence really impacts, our children's ability to learn, retain information, their peer relationships. I worked in the East Orange School District, and I was the anti-bullying specialist there. And I heard the other lady, I forget her name, say that October is domestic violence awareness. It's also anti-bullying month. So, in the month of October, we did a lot of things about, we did a lot of activities, about how to prevent bullying, domestic violence, different activities. Let me see, what can I say? Oh gosh, I have so many stories. I think like she said that with the mom, the parents, the mothers who cannot leave, I think many situations they want to leave, but they're too afraid to leave. They're afraid of the custody issues that comes with it, the finances and everything. I know I had an 11-year-old who, when I was having my activity for the anti-bullying, she was telling me, well, what if it's your mom that's being bullied? What if it's your mom? What if your mom can't protect herself? What can you do? And she just kept asking a series of what if. And, I would be asking her, well, are we talking about you? Who are we talking about? I knew she was talking about her. And then she was talking about herself until it spilled, where she told me everything, and she says that at some point, the domestic violence spilled over to her, where she was also getting hit. And she was just so, she just had to show me the bruises. She wanted someone to believe her. And, she wanted me to see the bruise. The bruise was on her leg. And as a social worker, the only way I would see her leg is for her to pull her pants down, and that would put me in a situation. And she just kept begging, no, you have to see it. You have to see it. I need you to see it to believe me. So I had to see it. I took her to the private nurse's office. I draped her, and she just showed me the one bruise. And, from there, we started the ball rolling, where we got, the Division of Youth Services involved. And, following day, the dad came in with the mom and confronted me, and actually went to the superintendent's office to try and sue me, and it all came out. And in the office, it was a big mess. He threw the mother out. And then later on, I heard that he threw both the mom and the child out of the house, and they had to sleep in their car. And even with that happening, the mother still came after me saying that I made this all up, that her daughter never told me anything. And it was so sad to witness, because, it was like she was not validating her child. So if you can't validate your child, how can you protect your child?
Well, isn't that out of fear? No, I mean, it's fear for herself and also fear for the child.
Yeah.
And I,
Yeah.
and also know in most cases, the children gets involved because they're trying to protect the mother. They think that, like, especially the older son, they think that they can fight the dad to help the mother.
Yep. It's it's really sad. It's a real sad situation.
So
You
Because
mentioned,
question. So I'm sorry, you said the school district, or did the parents attempt to sue you?
the parents, both the mom and dad, attempted to sue me
Oh,
because
yeah,
they
because
said that I made this whole thing up, that the child never actually they said that I made their child pull her pants down, and that I made all this up, that their child never told me any such thing, because that doesn't happen in their home.
and the craziest thing, because I'm a teacher in the state of New Jersey, so I know, the rule in New Jersey is that if a child reports something to you, then legally you're responsible once you have the information to report it, because if you don't, and then something happens to the child and it comes back that the child confided in you and you didn't report it, then you get in
Exactly.
trouble. So it's like being put into like a double-edged sword where, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yep. And we have to. There's no
And
way
then
around it.
And then, sometimes the parents are afraid, especially if DIFUS gets involved, because the first thing in their mind, oh, my kid is going to be taken away from me and go to foster home. Because I know of a case where there were two small kids and DIFUS had to be called. So when I told the victim, she was scared. But I told her not to worry, have no fear, because they're there to help you. And she did get the help and the aid that she needed. She did get the help and the aid that she needed for her kids and for everything. She was so scared. She was so scared. One of the things that we asked the victim, is there a gun in the home?
Right.
Make sure that they have pictures of their bruises, when did this start, and so on and so on, and the thing is, it's not only physical abuse, there's verbal abuse, there's the financial abuse where there's no money going to her or anything like that. There's sexual abuse, there's stalking, especially among the young adults, the young people. There's a lot of jealousy going on. Are you dating somebody else? Being possessive and all that stuff. All that is a part of abuse,
Yeah. And
and
then the isolation, not to mention the
yes,
isolation,
yes,
right,
yeah,
right.
Mhm.
And usually that's how it starts, because they don't, the physical is like the end result, because in order for them to get you in that position, they have to isolate you. So, like first it starts out of where are you going? And, you freely say, oh, I'm going here. And each time it gets a little further and further, next thing, you can't do this. You can't go to your family house. And then the verbal abuse.
Yeah. And then, they even go as far as give me your passcode for your phone, you know?
Mhm.
Right, right. So, Maggie, you mentioned earlier that you gave them the tools to prevent these things from happening. So, can you give an example of how, or the tools that you would give someone to prevent that from happening? Abuse.
Okay, there's a packet with all the resources where they could get legal help, where they could get financial help, where they could get housing, where they could get food and stuff like that, to like get them on their feet, get them started.
Right. No, but Maggie mentioned prevention, and to me, prevention is before it gets started. So, for example, if someone came to you and they said, you know what, my partner is verbally abusing me, what are some of the things that you would, tell them? What's some of the steps?
They have to report that. They have to report that to the police headquarters and seek the help that they need. And then the cop would go
Okay,
pick that person
okay,
up and so on and so on, So they have
but
to seek the help that they need. They have to
Mhm.
report it. That's the
but
first step, to report it.
but they would say to you that verbal abuse is not physical abuse. So nine
They
out of 10 times, there's nothing done with verbal abuse.
they still have to report it
They still,
because
yeah.
it leads up to being physical. Eventually, it leads
Correct.
up to being physical, and eventually that person could lose his or her life. So it has to be reported.
Correct.
It has to be recorded. It has to be recorded.
Yeah, no, no, I'm asking those questions because I've had incidents where those things are happening and they're overlooked because the thing is, you are not physically hurt.
Still have to report it.
So,
There has to be a paper trail, you know?
hmm,
There has to be the documentation. And, and that part of it is so, so important.
okay,
I know in the past, you know, women is who I have more experience with the domestic violence. They would
okay,
call the police, report some issues, and the police would come out and they would change their minds. Well, guess what? The police still has to document why they came out and everything, as if she did not change her mind.
Yep. Everything has to be
so,
documented.
okay. So, in your opinion, do you feel that women are well protected during domestic violence?
They can
Um,
be. They can be. If they
Does
don't
it,
change, if they don't
does it,
change their mind, if they don't change their mind and tell the
yeah.
victim where
okay,
they are, tell the
okay,
victim where the safety house is, or change their mind from the TRO, from the temporary restraining order or the
Mhm.
final restraining order. The
okay,
ball is in
so,
their court. The ball is in their
okay,
court, but sometimes the guy or the woman get to the victim and said, hey, I am so sorry. It's never going to happen again. I love you. I whatever. And that changed their mind and they go
Mhm.
back in the situation, and then it's worse. It's
okay,
worse than ever
so,
before.
right, right, and I, just from reading this woman's story, but the reason why I'm getting behind is that I've known quite a few incidents where the police officer is a friend or it's a police officer that's the abuser, and when they come, they do absolutely nothing, or it's a friend of theirs.
Well, maybe they should go to a different precinct and not that particular precinct where the police officer is working. That's
That's the
that's what
conflict of interest.
That's that's
that's what I would do. And also pastors do that too, because
oh,
I heard most recently that a pastor and the first lady, they were sitting side by this preacher, and he thought everything was all fine and everything was all okay. And next thing you know, they were abused in that household, and the pastor ended up killing his wife. So I mean, it varies. It's wide. It's not a black thing. I mean,
no, of
people
course, no,
think
no.
that it's predominantly a black thing. It really isn't, because you
Well,
would be surprised to know.
statistics shows that it's not. It has nothing, abuse have nothing to do with color or anything. Okay, before we continue, Miss Winfield has a very interesting story. I saw her story on one of my Facebook group, and I reached out to her and I asked her, is it possible for her to be here today? And here she is. So, Miss Winfield, can you tell us your story?
All right. So I experienced domestic violence, via my parents when I was younger, but my story is a little different. I am actually a survivor of sexual abuse. My stepfather had started molesting me when I was about 5 or 6 years old. And it's something that went on for quite a while. He died in 2013. And I didn't tell anybody about the abuse until after he died. So speaking from a victim's point of view, it is more so of, you know, the mindset that you develop when you're in a situation like such, the manipulation and the gaslighting, and the brain, you know, brainwashing, and then you develop, you know, what they call Stockholm Syndrome. So you start to believe the things that the abuser is telling you, and like someone had mentioned, they, you know, they say that they love you, and as a child, with this person being someone that is supposed to protect you, and take care of you, you still look at that person as such. So, you know, regardless of what was going on, I still refer to him as dad. You know, if someone was to speak ill of him, I defended him, you know, and, you know, if it wasn't for him, you know, we would be living on the street, you know, because he used to always make a point to tell me and my brother, you know, if I didn't come into the picture, who knows where you and your brother would be, you know, because of how your mom was. So while I witnessed him being abusive towards my mother, I was also being abused behind closed doors. So again, it's more so of the mentality that you develop in the situation. Um, as I got older, I knew it was wrong, but again, it became the norm. And then once him and my mom did divorce, I kind of became like the woman of the house, literally. So, you know, I'm the oldest of four. So I started, you know, washing dishes and cooking and taking care of my younger siblings. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere without them. Um, he had a drug habit. So, you know, my first summer job at 14 years old, I was told that I had to help with the bills. You know, my paycheck was all of $150. So things of that nature. And then my oldest two children are actually by my stepfather. So once I got of age, it became, you know, he got me a car to get back and forth to work. But then it was like, you know, if you tell anyone what's going on, I'm going to take the vehicle, or, you know, you're free to leave, but your son, you know, he has to stay here with me, you know. And then it was, I'm going to put you on child support, or I'm going to be the one to get in trouble, you know. And living in that state of mind since a child, and then feeling like I didn't really have anyone around to confide in, I just took it and I just accepted it. And it became more so of, okay, I really felt like I was going to be taking care of this man for the rest of my life. And he died of natural causes in 2013. So it was like a sigh of relief, you know, but I couldn't show that towards everyone else. And I feel like there were a lot of people around, including my mother, that knew what was happening, but kind of looked the other way and didn't say anything, especially family members. And even so, you know, his brother even mentioned witnessing it and still did not say anything about what was happening. So a lot of people failed me. Um, I now, as an adult, looking back on it, I accept accountability on some part, you know, for when I did get older, because I did have the ability to speak up. But again, I don't really fault myself because I was a child. You know, I was a child. I was groomed. And this was someone that was supposed to love me and take care of me and care about my well-being. And so I believe the things that were being done was because of such. So
Yeah, well, I think you were taken advantage of, and my advice to you is that don't beat up on yourself and don't blame yourself, because there were adults around you and they could have seen the signs and they could have given you help. But you know, but you're in a better place now, and you're a very strong woman, and you know, and you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
Ms. Whitfield, I would like to ask you a question, please. This is Carmen Coward. You know, I have a daughter, and I think I did my best, I think, to protect her from situations like that. But listening to your story of never telling your mom, I may I ask you something. Are there some signs that parents should be looking for in their children and their children's interactions with their fathers, uncles, maybe even an aunt, because this is the world we live in. Are there any signs that as parents we can look for to know, like telltale signs that we can use to help keep our children safe?
As far as the young ladies and the grown men being concerned, it's very imperative that we teach our young lady that it's not okay to sit on, all the grown men's lap. That's one of the things that looking back, I found myself doing a lot. We would go to family gatherings and things of that nature, and I would always go and sit in between the men's legs, and nobody would really, say anything about that. Just being overly, attached to the men, to the older men, and things of that nature. That's really the number one thing I would say. In my case, like I said, I would go to school and really just be this happy-go-lucky child at school because that was my escape. So looking at it from other people's perspective, it's hard to really pinpoint things like that. I can't really speak from a general consensus, but like I said, for me, it was I put on a good front so that people wouldn't know what was going on at home, because a part of me knew it was wrong, but then another part of me was like, okay, well, this is right because this is my dad, So it's like I said, I find myself now watching little girls, they like to be, we say fast, but I don't want to say fast because I don't believe, in that word, but just overly sexual and not into the normal things as, children at certain stages of development should be into, playing with the Barbie dolls and doing certain things with the dolls that, they would have no knowledge of, especially being their mother and knowing that it's not something that you've exposed them to. So those are things that I would definitely pay attention to, just lack of development and interest in certain things and being overly, attached to men, especially with the young girls. And not just the young girls, the young boys as well.
Correct. Well, I know, as you mentioned, sitting on men's lap growing up, that was definitely a no in our house. It didn't matter if it was your brother, your sister, your uncle. And based on what you're saying, I believe that our parents, great grandparents has experienced the same thing. And without telling us, because, as back then we're supposed to be seen and not be heard. So they keep us from experiencing that without telling us because everything is secret. Because I know if we ever got caught sitting in a man's lap, we got to beat it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beverly, you are so right, because growing up in the Caribbean, like it
Mhm.
was the same for us. Like it was a no way. You're not allowed to like sit in a man's lap or have your brother or your uncle or someone like pick you up and put him in his lap. No, it was not allowed. Definitely not.
Right. I remember as a kid, I got the worst beating because I was braiding my cousin's hair and he was sitting in my lap. And behind that was the beating of a lifetime. And now I see why, but as a kid, they didn't even say this is why. You just got the beating and don't even understand why, and it was innocent.
Yeah, because they never told you certain things, because as
Correct.
you say, they experienced, because back then things did happen, but they
Mhm.
wanted to protect you in a way by giving you a little bit and not telling you why. Mm-hmm.
They didn't tell us anything. It was just not to do it. It was not
Yeah.
allowed.
Yep.
All right, so we're
Now,
gonna move on to
I have a question.
okay.
So, what's the difference then between actually being abused and living in a household where, because everything in our society now is like hypersexual, So how do we then learn the difference between somebody who's actually being abused compared to somebody who's just living in a household where everything's just like they watch TV all day and their parents allow them to watch just every and anything and they don't really monitor their child. So how do we know the difference between the behaviors of somebody being abused compared to somebody who just is watching stuff and they're just hyperly sexual?
Maggie.
Oh,
You know what? And as you ask that question, that you absolutely, because I have some of the girls in my class, I mean, they go through the motions, you know, they sit there, they play with themselves. And, you know, for us, we don't know if they're sexually active, but they go through the motion.
And
I think
so,
it's persistence. I think it's the persistence that makes the difference.
What do you
It,
mean?
it, as far as if they're being exposed to something and and they're being abused versus if they're viewing it on social media or television of things of that nature. I think because I have young children, and I have boys and I have girls, and I monitor what they watch, but you can't catch everything. So sometimes they may come to me with different questions, and we'll open the conversation about different things versus if they were to see it. So when I say persistence, I mean, okay, if it's something that you're seeing a child do on a persistent basis, then yeah, there's probably something that's being done or they're witnessing something at home. But if it's something that they do and it's not so much a consistent thing, and it doesn't appear to be of a abusive nature, I think that's where you have to make the it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain. I know what I want to say, but I think it's a persistence thing when it comes to children and what they're viewing. Like I said, if it's something that you're seeing and it's on a continued basis and it starts to escalate into other things, then there's probably something going on with that child and they're being abused or they're experiencing things at home versus a child that does something, once a day or you catch them doing something and it's like, well, where did you see that or where did you learn it? It's like, okay, well, I was watching such and such last night and they were kissing on the TV or whatever the case may be. But if this child is coming to school on a repeated basis and they're showing this behavior, then that's when I would open up the doors of conversation and then begin to question and look into what's being done at home. So I think it's a persistent thing,
Miss
if
Winston,
that makes sense.
hey,
I'm
can I
sorry.
say, right? Go ahead. I'll wait till she finishes. But I wanted to say something about that topic. To me, I believe a lot of us have lost a moral compass to where if you allow your child, I remember coming home to where we were only allowed to watch TV for a particular time. And we our homework, we had to do our chores. It was certain shows that we could not watch. We could not listen to certain albums. We couldn't watch television shows and different things of that nature. And when we lose this moral code, what Mr. Perryman was talking about, to me is this: there's no difference. That's just another form of abuse of allowing your child to do anything that your child wants. What do you think they're going to pick up that behavior and they're going to act upon what it is that you allow them to watch?
Yeah.
Like prime examples is like Nicki Minaj. Y'all hear her. I don't know if any of y'all hear her music, but she talks about how she adore a man, financially take his money, how she have sex with him, how she threw twins and all kinds of different things of that nature. But it was a time period when she was listening to one of her songs and she was doing live and her daughter walked in and she closed her daughter's ears and put her daughter back out the room and closed the door. But we'll listen to that music and we will allow our children to listen to that music. And they will begin to go out in public and perform what they hear and what you allow them to do.
Yeah, we have to be careful what we expose our children to, knowingly and unknowingly.
I thank you
Miss
for
Smith,
that.
what? I'm sorry. I need to ask Miss Smith then. She said that her mom, she felt that the adults in her life failed her. Do you think there's a reason why your mom, you said you think your mom knew. Do you think there's a reason why your mom didn't protect you? Was your mom being abused by the same gentleman? And if not, why do you think your mom didn't protect you?
My mom most definitely was experiencing abuse from him. I will say that I won't go as far as to say it's a generational thing, but it is something that she did not have her mother around as a child. She grew up with her father. So there's a lot of things that as a mother she was not aware of. And she was very promiscuous in school, and with my brother's father, he was abused. I remember him being abusive to her as well. So there was and morals and values that weren't instilled into her. And she still to this day has a childlike mentality where I feel that she is stuck mentally at a certain age. So I don't blame her 100%, but I do blame her for not taking the initiative to make the changes and to be aware and to pay more attention, because she was too worried about these men. She was too about what they were doing and running after them. And like I said, mentally she was not there, and she's still not there. But there was a time where I can remember being present when those two were, having sex as if I was being coached. But she does not remember that, or maybe she's blocked it out, because when things of that, nature happen, people do tend to block things out. They put up a mental block. So again, I don't blame her, but I do feel like, she failed me to the point where you should have been more aware and involved with your children, to know what was going on. You should have been paying attention more versus dealing with these different men, running after these different men and things of that nature. You should have decided that, okay, I don't need this man to take care of me, that I don't need this man to take care of my children, that I'm going to try and do this on my own. And then maybe your eyes would have been open to some things, because I can't remember a time when she ever had us by herself. There was always a man around. They were married 13 years, and then once they got divorced and then he died, she moved on and she remarried, and they've been married for 13 years about now. So it's like there was always a man there to take care of us. So she never got the chance to mature mentally, to be that mother that she's supposed to be. And that's why I made the decision that I was not going to be that way with my children, that the cycle was going to end with me. So
You said you were glad when your stepfather slash I don't know how you call something like that, but I'm reserving judgment.
mhm.
You said you were glad when he died. Does that mean that that relationship between you and him continued until he died?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And that's what I was stating, as far as, it being something like you teach a child how to tie their shoes when they're very young. They do it on a daily basis. That's something that sticks with them. That becomes their routine. So, that certain things became my routine. It was almost, and I can remember a time where he asked me if I was not his stepdaughter, if I would marry him. So this man, who was also abused by his mother as a child, had mental issues of his own. And then you get my mother, who has mental issues. So you get these two messed up people trying to raise children, and this is the end result, So like I said, I've been doing a lot of healing. I don't I don't I don't hold any grudges. I don't have any anger towards the situation, because I've looked at the situation as a learning experience, as something that was supposed to make me stronger and a better mother, so that I would not turn out the way that my mother did. So I've raised my children very differently. I'm very aware of everything they do, aware of who they're around. I really don't allow them to go around too many different people, you know. And I keep the conversations open. My oldest is 30, I'm on his phone. Let me see your social media, what you got going on and all that good stuff. So I'm very protective of my children now as a mother.
One last question from me, and then I'll digress. You also said that you ended up with him. Does that mean that when your mom left him, she left you in the house with him. Is that what happened?
Yes, they got into an argument one night. They were divorced, but they were still living in the same household, just separate rooms, still splitting the bills. He was very controlling and was wanting to know who she was dating. They got into a huge argument one night, and she just up and left. That night, we didn't hear from her for like a whole year. She would write with no return address or nothing. So I literally like became the woman of the house. I was never allowed to have boyfriends. I never went to, any extracurricular activities at school, prom, none of that stuff. So, I was very sheltered in a sense, and having the type I had didn't make it any better. So
I extend grace to you.
thank you.
Yes.
All right. So thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so now we're going to hear from the male perspective of being a victim of domestic violence. Maurice, are you still on? Is Maurice still on?
Yes, I am. Can
Okay.
you see?
Yeah.
I dropped something, so hold on 2 seconds. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, yes. Hey, hi everybody. How you doing?
Hello.
I am Maurice Marbury, case manager, counselor, motivational, inspirational speaker, proprietor of several entrepreneurial programs and businesses, life coach. I want to say something. I don't want people to think that this is a situation of being braggadocious at the time. I come from the streets, born and raised in the projects, known to be a fighter. I was in the worst penitentiaries that you ever think of, survive and had shots, like random, documented, see it. I studied Taekwondo, Kung Fu, Jeet Kune Do. I kickboxed and boxed in the ring and outside the ring. And I say that to say that this, I'm one of the first men to speak about in Cleveland that I know of to be a speaker of being a victim and a survivor of domestic violence. And I listened to what one of the sisters said, one of the first sisters I heard speak, she was talking about how domestic violence has no genre. Domestic violence actually is not a Black thing, it's not a white thing. It is a people thing. It's not homosexual against homosexual. It is men against women, women against men, parents against children. And it is something it has no barriers on it. And it goes from everybody. And it's through a process of sometimes post-traumas to these are things that we see. And it's a process of also situations of to where we do not know how to control our anger. So we lash out on these things. I've actually been with a couple women in my lifetime that felt that I did not love them if I did not discipline them physically. When we argued, I had to put my hands on. And when I didn't put my hands on them, they put their hands on me. You know what I'm saying? I've witnessed the situation of domestic violence in my family, a man upon women, and I had to go back, and I'll get back to that later. Beverly, don't let me forget this part. And I watched a man perform domestic violence on somebody in my family for a period of time. So 4 years old, I said, when I get big, I'm gonna get him. And I never forgot that. And one of the prisons I went to, he was there. And I went to him and I said, listen. And he said, wait a minute, just talk, let me talk for a minute. And I want the sisters to understand this. He said, man, sit down and listen to me for a minute. And when we began to talk, he said, do you remember, man? He said, do you remember me? And I said, yeah. He said, I was never really violent. This I don't agree to, but I understand because he could have left. But he said, man, your family member is the one that caused me to be that way. This is what she liked because this is how she did me. And this is the only way that, it was merely to remember this. And I remember things to where he was trying to leave and say, listen, I got to go to school in the morning. And she would say things like, nigga, what, you a punk, you a fag, you a sissy, you scared of pussy. remember, I'm 3, 4 years old. Listen to this. And she would hold him to where he couldn't leave the house, but he's talking about going to school. And she would say, grab this, grab a broom, Maurice, grab a mop, Maurice, grab the stick, grab this. And she would say, hit him while she hold him, and I'm gonna make you stay. And these are things that this person, a female in my family, did to a man. And it made me think back and not become violent with him. I didn't agree with what he did, but like the sister said, sometimes the abnormal can become the normal, where this man began to put his actions of physical violence on this woman that he thought loved him. This is what love meant to her. And in many cases, this is the same thing with females. You can believe that he does not love me unless he puts his hand on me. He hit like you hit a child. The scripture says that you discipline a child you love. And we misconstrue those scriptures. We misconstrue what people say, and we put our hands and actually become violent to people we should not be violent to. My situation was, I want people to understand, I said that domestic violence has no genre. It's not, it is man against woman, it's woman against men, parents against children, children against parents. And it's not, I want people to understand, it's not just physical violence. I heard one of the sisters say, and it is correct, domestic violence can come through the processes right now, depending upon what state you go to. Like in Cleveland right now, where I am, in the city, you can have a verbal domestic. You can call a female out of her name. A woman can call a man out of her name to certain degrees where it's continued. And you can actually catch a case and go to jail behind it and actually be prison if you can actually do this. So there's domestic violence through finances, domestic violence through spirituality, domestic violence through sex, domestic violence, mental domestic violence, sexual domestic violence. It comes in all forms of fact. And what we have to do is, what I believe is, we have to overstand, not understand. We have to overstand with love in order to divert the process of what we accept as being normal. And when you understand what love is, it is a continuous flow of positive energy. Do we make errors? Yes, but the motive is always pure. The intent is always 100% for the effect and the betterment of everybody involved. I can't love you and put my hands on you and say, I still love you. I have a problem when I can put my hands on you, say, I love you. Please forgive me, and then do it again. Mm-hmm. Yeah, through the processes of being physically abused, I wouldn't hit a woman. I would actually go from room to room. So I'll go from room to room, and they will follow me from room to room. So then I started leaving. And then one day, people laugh at this when I tell a story, but it's the truth. I'm at the front door now, and I'm just looking, and I'm getting ready to get out of here. And my glasses was like this on my face. And she ran down the hall, and I said, man, did she just punch me in my face? And I filled my glasses, I fixed my glasses, and when I went down the hallway and through the kitchen and the dining room, she was doing like this, like waiting on me to just do anything with this if she was used to. And I put my fingers and I said, man, you crazy. And I walked out, and it turned out to be, on the fourth time that she did this, I said I was leaving. But it was 4 times, and I tried to understand what's going on. And I'm talking about all these arts and different things it is that I do. And we sit and accept domestic violence from a woman, though, because like the woman said, and one of the brothers say, I'm a man. I can take this. I can handle this. This is a woman. She can't hurt me, but guess what? She can. She can hurt you mentally, emotionally. I'm one of the strongest men that I've ever met in my life, and I've met really, really strong men. But the words that women can say to men over and over again can affect you. And they will affect you in your next relationship. They will affect you when you go to work. They will affect you when you go outside in society. They will affect you when you deal with your family. They will affect you when you deal with your children. And I hate it, but like the sister said, it's real bad when children are involved, because guess what? People say they don't know. Children do. They feel what's going on. If you don't say a word, they feel your energy and actions. They look at how you look at each other in the house. They listen to the phone call when you on the phone talking to your girls about how this nigga ain't no good and how you don't need no man and how he's not this and how he's not that. The child and the woman and the little boy and the little girl, they hear and see and they hate it when the man hits his woman. They know she walked. They know who hit you in your face. They know who got you with those big glasses on, them bruises on your body, even though they didn't see it. So these children are affected by this, and later on, guess what happens? They become the men and the women that they were groomed to be as little boys and little girls. So they create a terrible cycle that we need to. One thing she said is this, and I want people to understand. I don't know what city you are in. I think she said Jersey. Maybe somebody said Washington or something. I can't remember, but I want people to understand that. Do you know that 40% of statistics of the violence are women against men?
Mhm.
And it is a very, very uneven field. Women have places that they can go and talk about the violence, but to men, my man can call the police and say, man, my woman put her hands on me. She got a knife. She cut me. She hit me in my privates. She hit me with a hammer. My head is busted. And the police will get there and say, man, for real, you calling on your woman? They will even make the man leave his house, her name is not on the lease. Her name is not on the deed. So like the sister said, some of us allow pride and ego to get in the way to where I'm calling iron. But a lot of us allow the pride and the ego to get in the way because I'm a man. These are things that I'm supposed to be able to handle. And we misconstrue the definition of handle to accept. And we begin to accept these things. Queens, this domestic violence when you put your hands in your man's face and talk about how you're going to call your brothers and your uncles. And if he hits you, not even thinking about it, he's sitting down, you mad about something that might not even have anything to do with him, but your fingers in his face. You all up, punk, say something else, fag, you this and you that, and that's domestic violence.
Mhm.
That's domestic violence. And these are things that men deal with. And again, statistics say that 40% of all domestic violence cases are women against men. So guess actually how many the number is, really. We can imagine this. Where if it's 40% talked about, the majority of us men are scared of our pride, scared of our ego, and we what people are going to say about us not being able to handle the woman that is being violent to us. Because I'm a dog in the streets. So I'm a gangster. I'm a thug. So I have to accept this. And we don't. But again, like women have places that you can go to. You have people that you can talk to. But this is not something that's big for men. This is not something I don't know of any places that a man can go to in Cleveland, Ohio, because he's been a victim, and or is a survivor or trying to survive domestic violence. Financial.
I don't know.
Try to deal with me from a financial perspective. You know what I'm saying? Oh, he just came home from the joint. Y'all did time. Yeah, he just came from the home from the joint. This is what he gonna do. He gotta do this. He has to do this. And I'm talking about not he has to, just talking to people, but telling me you have to. One of the things the first lady I was talking about that put her hands on me, I was on parole at the time that we was together. And one of the things that saved me is, through the trials and tribulations I've been through, I learned how to remain calm through any situation that's going on. And I'm remaining calm while I'm talking to her on the phone. Our phone calls are recorded though. She's writing me and I'm writing her. And I took the letters to the parole board when I was under investigation. I could have got 10 years because this girl lied on me. Because I was on parole. That was what they can give me per time anytime I violated parole. And I took those letters to parole board. And those letters talked about I control your life. Nigga, this is why you better do this when you come home. And this is why you better do that when you come home. And if it wasn't for me, and I showed them this. And by the grace of God, they allowed me to be released. But in many situations where I'm from, and through my experience and through my studies of being an advocate against sexual abuse and domestic violence, most of us as men, there's nobody to help us. When a woman goes to this is another thing. When a woman goes to court for domestic violence here, there is a domestic violence advocate that steps in for her and begins to speak for her. And do you understand that if you say that you're going through domestic violence, that they help you find a place to live? They give you food stamps. They help you eat. They help you find a job. They do all these things. So guess what? If you're lying, guess what? You begin to tell a deeper, broader, you know what I'm saying, and more extravagant lie on somebody that never really even put his hands on you. And then they will go to court and actually speak for the person. They will actually tell her what to say to the judge to make it effective to where he actually gets time. And like Beverly Perry, you already know in my case, it was all a lie that by the grace of the Most High ended up coming out later on down the line after I fought a case for 5 years, went to jail 3 times.
You know, brother, you're absolutely right, because we had a case with a woman, very abusive woman, off the wall, very, very abusive. And despite the fact that it was his home, he was put out of his home. We had to find a place. We had to find a place for him. Wasn't my case, had to find a place for him. But the thing is, I find if a woman hit a man, brother, walk away. Don't hit her back. Don't hit her back, or it's all going to be on you.
Oh, hey, that was the whole thing. But the thing is, what I'm talking about, unfair perspective, especially, and I'm gonna say this, especially for the Black family, it's easy for them to tell the woman, this Black woman, how to lock this Black man up and get him out of her house, even if it's a lie. And guess what? We will help you. We're going to help you with rent. We're going to help you find a place to live. We're going to help your children. We're going to send you shopping. We will help you do honest. That's how it is here. I don't know about in other places, but that's how it is here. And those are things that I experienced. And I never put my hands on this woman. It comes out later on down the line. So that's why one of the reasons why now I am quick. If you doing, I've always walked away from people first. I always walk away from women no matter what. Even put your hands on me, like I said, with a lot of things that I practice, I know how to touch you in places and make you leave me alone and get away from you and say, hey, look, get gone now and get away from you. However, if a woman calls the police on a man first, I know here, he going to jail.
Yeah,
He's everywhere. That's just there. Same thing here.
I've never been to Jersey. I've never been to Washington. I've never been to places that some of y'all are talking about, so I can only talk about here. And if she says anything, this brother, this Black man, he got to prove that he did not do it by, like Malcolm X said, every means necessary. Court, jail time, a bond, everything. It's horrible.
I'm telling you, it's not
it's
just
the
Ohio.
same.
It's
It's
just
the
about
same all over.
all
It's the
over.
same.
Right.
It's the same.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I had an acquaintance that's in North Carolina that was gonna leave his wife. She decided that he molested her sons. He spent 5 years in jail for no reason because she didn't want him to leave. So it happens.
My second wife, that's what happened. You know that story, Beverly Perry. Man, I was leaving. I wanted to leave because I could not continuously handle the emotional, you know what I'm saying, abuse and domestic violence. So I'm like, look, I'm gonna go to one of my properties and I'm gonna just look, let's just take some time together. I mean, away from each other. And what it is she couldn't. So she made me leave on her terms, began to have an affair with an officer that worked at our oldest daughter's high school. This been on the news and everything. Worked with an officer that worked at our oldest daughter's high school, that worked for the precinct that came to arrest me and under the judge that convicted me.
Oh my gosh.
This come out later, man. $300,000. You know, jail 3 times, lost property, 3 cars, because I can't handle what you're doing. I don't want that anymore. This is what I'm talking
how we have to over love it. It's a continuous flow of positive energy. When you accept the of who you are, there are certain things that you will not allow in your life. And when you see these things coming, you can say, I like you, but look, I like you over there. I love you over there. Guess what? I have an issue with certain things in me. That's my internal peace in my relationship with my God. And when you begin to disturb these, it's time to go. That's what my love. And when you begin to disturb these, it's time for me to go. And another thing about loving is this: when you love yourself and have this value of you, I'm not going to even bring sense to somebody else. I'm not just going to not allow it to be on my table. I'm not going to bring it to yours.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
I know the equation of the help women get and the help men get are two different things. I wonder how we can go about changing that so that there's a shift, equal shift in assistance and tools for both male, female, transgender victims of domestic abuse.
I myself, I just started a nonprofit organization called Game Anonymous. And like many of us were not addicted to Black people. I'm just using us as people that's no, I don't dislike white people, but I'm just talking about how we need help. And I say that to say a lot of us were not addicted to cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, different things of that nature. We were addicted to a certain lifestyle. And the Game Anonymous is one that helps reverse the thought process of accepting the abnormal as the norm. And domestic violence, even for men, is how to bring back the conversations between our elders and our youth are in there. Our youth respecting our elders are in there. And then both of these parties actually leading and guiding our children in the right direction. So what we have to do is we have to do this on our own. If you really want it, like I speak often and I say this, that Black lives will only matter to the rest of the world when they begin to matter to Black lives. And I say that to say, if you really want to do something about it, act upon it. There's somebody that will assist you on what it is that you need to do. I wanted to say about the sister earlier, if I may, parent. When I just finished speaking about how we need, as elders, to start talking to the youth again, and then we need to start. I was raised like you, Beverly Pyramid, even as a man, even as a boy child. Don't sit on no strangers' laps. Don't let nobody touch you right here. Not even your daddy. You know what I'm saying? If it's not around me. Your mom, listen, this is what you do not do. Because this is what the situation is. Your mother raised you right. Didn't you get a whooping? You
correct,
said you got
but and of course,
what's
definitely, but they big time, but they experience it. That's why, without telling us, this is what happened to us by our own relative. So instead of, now I think, like Ms. Whitfield said, she's able to sit and talk to her children. My daughter is able to sit and talk to her children.
right.
Growing up, our vagina was everything. We didn't know it was a vagina. It was every kind of name that you could think of. And you're like, what the hell is that? So now we have to teach our children, you have a vagina, teach boys you have a penis, and this is what it does, and don't let anybody touch you. So I think we have evolved from then to now where we're more open with our children and just even having this conversation. And this is why I like about this conversation here that we're having.
I don't even
So
really think
hopefully,
I
I'm
think
sorry?
I don't think we've evolved. I think we've digressed. We've lost moral now. So I can go out and do what I want to do in the club and lounge on the block. So
Well,
I can and the housewives, love and hip hop. I'm gonna send my kids there to watch whatever they want to watch on cable or play whatever game it is that they want to play. And I'm not going to teach them what my parents taught me that actually protected me. And we
Well,
don't.
you know what? I tend to disagree a little, and I guess it depends on who you are and your upbringing. Because I know for me and most of the people in my surroundings, our children are taught differently. And definitely, our kids don't hang out in the club and jumping up. Most of my associates and friends, we don't hang out at club, and we definitely don't listen to this music that refers to B and H's. So I think it depends on who you are and where you are.
Well, see, I'm generally speaking. I'm not talking about you specifically. When I say we, I ain't even included in myself because I'm generally speaking. But when I came home, I'm riding down the street taking my son and my daughter to school, and they listening to a song that said, "When all the drugs are gone, I feel like dying." And I'm listening to this, and I said, man, I turned the music down. I said, "Do you know what they saying? Do you listen to what it was a song by Lil Wayne? You remember that, Mr. Perryman?"
Don't listen to that crap.
Yeah,
Oh.
he's.
I
And
think
I'm
you're talking to me.
Oh.
No,
I'm,
but and because I don't have any children, so but because I'm a teacher and I see how certain things affect children, because even like my friends now, if they like they'll be driving and they'll have the music blasting, and I have to tell them like, are you even mindful of what the lyrics are to the song that you have? Like you might just be paying attention to the beat, but your children are actually mimicking the words that come out of the radio.
Right.
Like you need to be mindful of the things that you play. And they be like, oh, they know better. I'm like, they don't know better.
They don't know.
right,
No.
right. And I told my kids, I said, y'all can't listen to this no more. I called my daughter reading the book. I said, you can't read this no more. And I told her mother that she can't read this no more. So, we, generally speaking, again, have to be parents. Those old rules that you grew up with, those old rules that you grew up, that we grew up with, we have to pass them down. And we have to teach that, and we have to live by example. Today's times, the system has created us to where the elders don't speak to the youth. Some of the elders aren't scared of the youth. The youth no longer respect the elders. So who's raising our children?
Yeah, they're scared of
Can
them
I,
because the minute you say something to them, they're ready to shoot you. So you see both sides of the coin. Yeah, I would like to discipline you, but yeah, I'm afraid of you.
Yeah. And we have
can I
only
say something?
change that.
Go ahead, Miss Coward.
So I'm thinking about that domestic violence is more than just music, and it's not only current. I think about reading Maya Angelou's The Bluest, You Can't Keep a Good Woman Down, in which she talked about being raped by her uncle. I'm thinking about Oprah Winfrey being sexually abused by her uncle, and the domestic violence, because that is domestic violence because it's being done to you by your family. And I'm thinking about, they didn't have Nicki Minaj and they didn't have Carly B, but this is an ongoing problem in our community. So what I would like us to leave with is like, what can we do about this? How can we help? Without pointing fingers, without blaming, because at the end of the day, Carly B wasn't around when this young lady's stepfather was sexually abusing her.
But was the mother or the father being a parent? I only used a certain thing to talk about certain things. Again, I said generally speaking. But again, these things do affect us. This is why advertisement and television is made like it is. It's geared towards us as a people to be divided.
Yeah, but as we mentioned earlier, we talk about the violence. It's not just in our community. It happens to everyone.
Every
It
segment.
happens to everyone. So you know what? Ben, are you still on? Yeah, let's try to catch him when he comes back on.
May I say something here?
Sure.
I'm on. Sorry
Good
about that.
evening. That's okay. We're there's being aware and having these conversations is a starting point for what bring attention and awareness to what's going on. These things have been going on in different ways over the years. When we were growing up, yes, we were punished for doing little things that we were not aware of why we were being punished because no one was telling us what was going on. Our parents, under the circumstances, I believe, did the best that they knew at that point in time because they did not have any person ahead of them explaining or talking to them about what was going on. The world has changed over the last 50, 60 years, where even now we've gone to some degree, on my point of view, a little bit over the extreme, where everything is pretty much almost in the open. People are so free to talk about what they did last night with their spouse or their girlfriend as if there has no filter. It is simply
Correct.
said, oh, I did this and I had fun and my man did this and I took care of business. And what goes on in your sexual life to me behind closed doors is your business. So I found that they've gone over the extreme where it becomes too wide, too open, non-filtered. The solution to some of this is what we're doing now is having an open discussion. And the more we have conversations, the more people become aware of these issues and people try to put things in place to help solve them, mitigate them, minimize them where possible. But these things have been going on throughout history in one form or the other. It's just that we did not know about them to the extent that we know as is right now. Because when you
That's
look back at
correct.
history, when people were talking about abortions in the minority communities, when you look back, you will see that in the majorities, these people were doing the same thing, but they were doing them in secret.
Correct.
You would see that all of a sudden, Mrs. Morrison's daughter went away for a year, came back, and now Mrs. Morrison and her husband has a child,
Mm-hmm.
and it's their cousin or their whatever. But guess what? That child was sent
It's a
away
grandchild.
because they were pregnant. That's their
Correct.
child, and so now they hid that. Or a lot of these people they had abortions, and nobody was told that they had abortion. Later on, we come to find out through the grapevines or whatever that yes, those abortions were being taken care of in high society. It's just that nobody was told about it. It was hidden.
Right.
So these are things that
Absolutely.
have gone on through history. And what we're doing now is trying to find solutions how to mitigate and change this behavior. One of the things that I always grew up with hearing is in order to avoid being pregnant, abstinence was the only solution. People don't want to talk about abstinence. They don't want to exercise abstinence because guess what?
It's
It's
not
my
possible.
body. Yes, I can do what I feel like. But guess what? When you get pregnant, what are you going to do? Oh, the solution might be I can have an abortion. But that's a choice that you're making. If you practice abstinence, and for whatever reason, that is not supposed to be taught in schools. Don't talk to us about abstinence. You can't tell me how to do it with my body or my sexual activity. So there's a whole
Well,
myriad of things that go on that we can't, I don't think it's wise for us to pigeonhole and say, in this society and this now, all of a sudden this is happening. It's been going on through history.
you're
I,
absolutely
I,
correct. You're absolutely right.
I agree with you that it has been going on. But what I say is this, because we have lost and are continuously losing our moral compass, it is
Yes,
it is becoming the norm. When
absolutely.
we did things back in the day, like you said, King, it was hidden. Didn't nobody know about that, and it was few. It was a little bit because we were taught the rules and the regulations of things to do, and to be responsible for our actions. Now
Yes,
today, it's okay. I could do what I wanted.
that's what I said. It's
All
open.
right.
It's gone the opposite way where it becomes too easy and it's like we don't control children. Children are controlling the parents.
Yeah.
Okay,
You know what?
Ben,
Back then they had men. I had a job, a good job with the government, and my boss was trying to get at me and get at me and get at me. At that time, I didn't know it was abuse. He would be saying all sort of stuff, and I'm glad that I had a mouth, and I'm glad that I told people like the chief education officer and those people who had my back and who protected me. However, there was one woman, there was a professor who thought that I slept, and I was a little girl, I was about 19, 20, who thought that I slept with this man to get the job. She did everything possible. I had to retake an exam to pass that exam to get this job because she thought, I don't know why she looked at me and thinks such a thing, because I never had a reputation. However, this man tried to get at me, and one day he called me, and it was, you had to address them properly. Miss Cadet, go to the office and bring these papers to my flat. I'm glad I had a mouth. I told my aunt, and I said, I don't know why Mr. Grant wanted me to bring these papers to his flat. And she knew right away. I had no clue I was innocent. She said, you know what? You call him and tell him that I'm bringing the papers to the flat. You're not going to the flat. And that was that. And that really saved me. It really, really saved me. So when this professor realized that I was an innocent, good girl, um, she really changed her personality and everything towards me because I wasn't doing anything wrong. But this man was just trying and trying his best to get at me, and it didn't succeed. I also had a classmate who every time I turn around a corner, and I didn't know it was abuse at that time, every time I turned, this guy would be there. I would go up the street, he would be there. And it bothered me so much. And I told my grandmother, and my grandmother, she got dressed when she put the hat on and those stockings on and that jacket on. She said, okay, we're going to his mother. And she went to his mother and she said, you tell your son to leave my granddaughter alone. And that was the end of that. I'm so glad that I had a mouth and I had a feeling that things weren't right, the things that were trying to happen to me, that happened to me. And that spared me. That really, really spared me.
And I
and
add,
okay, hold,
what to
hold
do.
on one.
Taught that where you taught that what was being done to you and what he was trying to do was wrong.
Because she had a sense of it,
Yes,
and being
sense,
able
right.
to
I
speak to somebody created an opportunity because they sensed and they had an inclination of what those people were trying to do. Part of life is as an innocent person, when people see that you're innocent, they try to take advantage of your innocence. They even go around saying that things are actually happening that are not
that's
happening.
not.
So it's not even about what you being an innocent person. It's some person saying, oh, guess what? I'm sleeping with her. I'm doing this with her. I'm dating her.
Mhm.
And they're spreading
Right.
that rumor. And the people who know them as believe in them, and you're walking around innocent, and you're like, what's going on
You're
around me? You
clueless.
nobody's
Right.
coming to you. Nobody's coming to you and saying, hey, is that true? They're like, they believe in that person until evidence prove otherwise.
Okay. All right, guys. I'm gonna Ben, you're on. I'll give you an opportunity to speak.
All right. You're
Well,
talking. That's
You're listening. You heard the whole conversation.
all right. All right. Good.
No,
Good.
no. I'm sorry. Then no, I was talking to
Then
Ben. After that, you could. Yeah,
I thought it was then. Okay. I'm sorry.
yeah. Nice to
you're
meet you,
next.
Dan. I'm Dan. I
And every time I
just
called on you, you disappeared.
sorry about that. Usually I get confused when people say Dan every time I think people are saying my name. But just expressing gratitude to everyone taking all this time to talk about this when you could all be having martinis and watching Netflix. And you know, we're all idealists here, so it's really nice to be with woke people who care. And I'm grateful to be in business with Beverly now on behalf of Sapiosexual magazine. And you've probably all heard that buzzword by now, but sapiosexual refers to being attracted to intelligence. So conversations like this are exactly what sapiosexual is about, combining sexy and smart. So we're talking about things that are sexual in nature, but also on an elevated level. So that's my takeaway tonight, is adding depth and nuance to something that's usually a simple conversation, like he and his girlfriend got into a domestic incident, so it must be the guy's fault. And we see how more complicated it is than that, where women can leverage the justice system and men can leverage the threat of informing loved ones, of almost a blackmail, if you will, against the person they're perpetrating and normalizing this behavior. I also have been in a domestic situation for years. My ex-fiance, she was very tiny, but very tough, apparently. And what we see is that, going back to the men nuances, is that men are put in a catch-22 because society assumes that we should be able to defend ourselves. But of course, if we do defend ourselves, then we're suddenly the perpetrator. So all you can really do is take the hits or leave, but usually they find ways to stop us from leaving. So I didn't feel any sympathy from friends and loved ones reporting the physical violence. And I do think it's a lot more prevalent with females and a lot more dangerous. And I feel like almost all of my friends, now that I'm in my 30s, and a lot of my ex-girlfriends, almost everyone has been sexually or physically violated. So this is a very pervasive situation. And there's only so much we can do tonight, but at least we added some complexity to a sometimes reductive conversation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for
Ben,
that.
can I ask Ben a question?
Sure.
Ben, do you think it's possible, if we have like an open and honest conversations with our children early, perhaps if we ourselves are healed people and not broken people, for the most part, do you think there's a way we can start building up children from young so that they're able to cope, so that they know they can depend on themselves, so someone is not abusing them and trapping them into a relationship because they can't afford to take care of themselves or their children, and they feel helpless and unable to escape? How can we start changing that perception of ourselves so that we become self-dependent, so that we are able to defend ourselves, and as I think as Shirley said, have a mouth that we can stand up for ourselves? How can we do that? How can we teach our girls and men that, boys that actually?
See, I was enjoying listening to other speakers because I don't have any children, and there are some people here tonight who not only have children, but work with children professionally. I have done so in the past with special ed kids with overlapping issues, but from a parental point of view, not much to say. However, growing up as a child in an American family and going on to create Healers Magazine, it's because I see that the average American family is growing up with very misguided in terms of emotional intelligence. So there's only so far we can go coming from broken homes. And usually our homes are broken not because of socioeconomic status, but because of we're just all tossed into this mixing bowl in America, not benefiting from the thousands of years of other cultures perfecting emotional intelligence and wisdom. And so a lot of us suffer from mental health issues and everything. And we don't have a very strong spiritual foundation in the States. So what I see is, in my opinion, the importance of bridging like ancient wisdom and modern, postmodern culture is that we can provide some grounding to all of these people who are just lost. And, you know, a lot of these victims and victimizers, if they had more grounding culturally, wouldn't be stuck in these situations as well. But I feel like I'm talking too much.
Okay, Mr. Charles, you're up.
All right. Once again, thank you, everybody. I have learned so much. In my humble opinion, I would say this was very deep. All those who contributed and the back and forth, I have learned a lot, but I have to confess my heart sank hearing the stories of Miss Kwamisha Whitfield. And I just couldn't believe those things, you know, what she went through, the fact that her mom was present. So it means that family members knew of her ordeal. And to be that young, being taken advantage of by an older man, this is very disturbing, very troubling. I have a 20-year-old daughter. We have a very good relationship, and she tells everything. My son is closer to his mom, again, everything. So I just wrote some notes here, which I believe could be helpful. Number one, identify. You have somebody who is abusing you or his relationship getting a little bit too personal, too close for comfort. All right, a red flag should go up. Then isolate the behavior or activity that is offensive to you. You should know exactly when it starts, hey, that one is not welcome. Isolate. Report. You have to report to authorities or at home if you live with your parent and another parent doing it or a neighbor next door to you is doing it. You report, and after that, we have a lot of professionals out there on this panel, psychiatrists, psychologists, whatever it is, seek help. So in closing, I'm not going to be long. Parents should have an instinct, a gut feeling when your son or your daughter is experiencing something that is not right. You have to have some kind of gut feeling. Trust no one. And as far as I'm concerned with my daughter, I trust nobody. You understand? So I whatever, I don't know, help or if I should say support. This gut-wrenching story from Miss Misha, I hope I'm saying the name right. I'm sorry if I'm not. I would like to reach out to you. This is something else. I've never heard of that before. Thank you very much.
Well, Ms. Whitfield, I have to commend you on your maturity and outlook on life at this point, because that experience can be very traumatic and set you along the same path that you were exposed to and perpetuate the circle or the cycle that you experience. So to be able to get to a point in life where you have that kind of view is very mature and it's an asset to your development and your outlook on life. And that would serve well your daughters and those who you interact with throughout the rest of your life. it is hard to know that a parent knew to some degree what was going on. A lot of times that is a betrayal that most people do not ever get over, knowing that to some level the parent in the home or the adults in the home knew and were aware of what was going on, but did nothing. And more so in those days, and probably a lot at this time too, these things are perpetuated and occurring. And nobody likes to say, well, Uncle Tom or Aunt Esther was abusive. But it's like, let's keep it a secret. Nobody needs to know that. So again, I commend you on your maturity and your growth and your current outlook on life. And I
Thank
wish
you.
you well.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
I'd like to.
Felicia and other women, there are in the chat, you will see some resources for some of the group that Shirley spoke about, that Maurice talked about. They're in the chat. I placed some of them there. Feel free to copy them and put them in a Word document and seek help if you need it. So we found some resources for you guys.
Okay. I also have plenty of resources. I just post Spice Island Girl, Spice Island Queen resources. I have quite a few resources there. On there, you can go check them out. They're of, great value. During the pandemic, while we're still in it, I got a lot of calls, so this is where I refer them to. Kalisha, I want to say one thing. We had a conversation where you were seeking some kind of help. Is there any way you want to talk about that? Maybe someone on here might be able to help you.
In regards to,
Your sons, you said you had reached out to get help.
yeah, I have been trying since 2014 to get survivor benefits for them. I kind of just gave up on it because I figured I wasn't going to get the cooperation from his side of the family, and the DNA test that I had done through my biological sister, which is his biological daughter, wasn't enough evidence to suffice according to Social Security. So I kind of just left it where it was. If anybody knows of someone that, legal wise that could help me with it, I'm open to it. But if not, like I said, I like to view life where things happen for a reason and some things don't happen for a reason. So,
Call Women Aware and see if they could give you any help, any legal help.
okay.
And I think Beverly have that number up, posted up, the Women Aware phone number.
All right.
Beverly, you have it posted, right?
She posted it in the chat. I
Yeah,
see
it's
it.
there. It's in the
Yeah.
chat.
If you could call them and if you could explain your situation. And I really have great respect and great regard for you. My heart is aching for all those things that you went through. But I tell you, I am so glad that you pull yourself back up and you're there for your children and you're seeking a better life. And I have great respect that you're a survivor and you could tell your story. And in telling your story, you'll be able to help someone.
Yes, I'm
Because
writing my memoir.
because oh, you're not alone. You're not alone. You'll be able to help someone with telling what you experienced. So my hat go off to you, and I have great, great, great respect and regard for you in being a survivor and being so eloquent and
Thank you. Thank
yeah.
I would just like to thank you for just, we don't know each other. I just met you on social media, and for you to be able to have the courage to come on here and tell your story. I would like to express to you that anytime you feel that you need someone to talk to, you can always reach out to me.
Yes, this has been very healing for me. One of my biggest things was being judged and worrying about what other people would think of the situation, but I've gotten past that. So this has actually been a very healing, event for me. So I thank you for inviting me to be a guest.
No
And please,
judgment here.
please do remember that you are not alone. Okay?
Yes.
Do.
You're not alone.
Yeah, know that. Call me and contact me anytime it is you want to, inbox me or whatever the situation may be. I can communicate with you and communicate with people here that may be able to see through different sources actually in the city that you are in.
Yes,
And they
thank you.
will go down for for you to one day come out of the box that you're in by yourself, to come out and talk. Understand, for you just to speak is big for, like, this is big for people who are in the same situation that you were in. It's powerful.
Yeah, I have a desire to go and speak, especially to the young girls in different schools and things of that nature. So if anyone has any more opportunities for me, I'm open to them. Just let me know.
Kamisha, I put something for you. I'm doing it right now, and it's private. So can you click on it? And then if for help with regarding your son, they will refer you, okay?
All right, thank you. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
And thank you again for your courage.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and okay, let me stop my sharing.